Getting over into our sports chat real quick. I want to start off with congratulating Giannis on signing a massive supermax contract, 5-year extension worth $228 million to stay with the Milwaukee Bucks. And I finally saw a tweet today that I got a kick out of that was talking about nobody can say that no one wants to stay in Milwaukee and play sports when you have Giannis that just signed a 5-year contract, and you have Christian Yelich who signed an 8-year contract for $200 plus million. So you have two big names that signed extensions to stay in the Milwaukee area to play sports, and especially when you've had Aaron Rodgers there for the last 14 years, 2005 draft, so 15 years. So, congratulations, Giannis. Well deserved. And hopefully we can see a title end up in Milwaukee at some point. Okay. Switching gears over to the NFL, we're going to do a quick little Week 14 recap before we get into our primary topic tonight, which is going to be the NFL playoff outlook, looking forward into Week 15 and beyond. All right. So Week 14 NFL recap. We've got, starting it off with the Thursday night game, the absolute obliteration of the New England Patriots by the Rams, 24-3, in a game where Cam Newton looked lost. He did not look like Cam Newton. He did not look like the running Cam Newton. He didn't look like the throwing Cam Newton. He didn't look like Cam Newton at all. And some can argue that there was other issues on the team. But when the fact of the matter is he was pulled and Jarrett Stidham got to play, now they're going to start probably looking at it as, is Stidham the future? And should we draft another quarterback just in case? Is Cam done in New England? What's the story going to be going forward? Either way, Rams win, move on to 9-4, holding the number one spot in the NFC West, and Patriots are all but eliminated from playoff contention. Moving over into Sunday's games, we've got, which, by the way, the other thing that I got, in case some of you guys didn't know, I got a new microphone. Hopefully the sound is better. But I also got my docking station set up, so now I have both my screens up and running, and it's fantastic. I love it. But yeah, hopefully the sound is better. I have a very, very good microphone that had very good reviews, so hopefully the sound is better than the sound that I was pumping through my camera microphone prior to this week. Okay, moving again. Sunday, starting off Broncos and Panthers, with the Broncos edging out the Panthers. Drew Lock had a career-high 4 touchdowns and looked very good. This weekend was an odd weekend for some of the quarterbacks that everybody had almost written off, and Drew Lock was one of them. It makes you wonder if Drew Lock could run that offense, especially once they get some of the defensive keys back, Von Miller, for example, and their defense is back up to being able to shut down teams, and so that Drew Lock doesn't have to score 30-plus points a game until he's established a rapport with his wide receivers, with his young wide receivers. Because remember, there was no offseason for some of these rookies, and Drew Lock wasn't the starter all season last year. He was hurt most of last year, so he's probably just now getting into the swing of things as well. So Broncos take down the Panthers and remain in the playoff hunt. We'll get into that later tonight, but they're not really. 5-8, and the Panthers fall to 4-9. Bears laid an absolute walloping on the Houston Texans. The Texans defense couldn't do anything to stop Mitch Trubisky, which is shocking. But the Chicago defense had 7 sacks, which is their most since 2005, in a game where Mitch Trubisky actually looked like the Mitch Trubisky that they had drafted and wanted since they drafted. Was a little surprised to see that happen against a fairly stout front to the Houston Texans, and the Bears pretty much moved the ball at will. Deshaun Watson did look to struggle, and his wide receivers did not look good. This was a prime game where he was missing DeAndre Hopkins. Texans officially eliminated from the postseason contention, or potentially making a run at qualifying for the playoffs. Texans are eliminated. Staying on the absolute walloping, the Cowboys just beat down the Bengals. Bengals looked lost, horrible. And again, their offense is bad. It was bad before Joe Burrow got hurt. It looks even worse now, especially since, it's bad quarterback play, and he can't connect with his wide receivers. He puts up 7 points against a mediocre Cowboys defense. And the Cowboys somehow miraculously stay in contention for the NFC East. Again, we'll get into more of that later. Bengals, though, are way eliminated from the playoffs. Don't even joke about them having a shot at it. They've been mathematically eliminated for a couple of weeks. Packers barely edge out the Lions in a game that the Packers should have just manhandled and destroyed them. But again, when you're dealing with division rival football, you got to throw all the expectations out the window. You'll have one game where the Lions will get walked all over by the Packers. Then the next game, the Lions will make it a close game or even beat them. Packers maintain their first place spot take over the first place spot in the NFC with this win due to the Saints losing. We'll cover that in a little bit. But anyway, Packers take this one 31-24 and clinch the NFC North division, and they are sitting in 10-3 right now. Titans absolutely knocked around the Jaguars. Derrick Henry had yet another monstrous performance. 200 plus rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Derrick Henry's a friggin' beast. I don't care what anybody says. Dalvin Cook's a fantastic runner. He's probably one of the better running backs, but Derrick Henry is just a monster. He is so tough to take down. He is a bulldozer, and he's got pull-away speed. It is crazy watching that guy run. Titans got a good thing going. And Tannehill plays very well. In a game where Tannehill did not play his best, Titans, the Derrick Henry is the easy way to bail anybody out. Titans 9-4, Jaguars 1-12, and they're sitting in the number 2 hole for the draft. And we'll see if they can potentially get the number 1. Gardner Minshew is going to be the starting quarterback going forward as well, even though he looked like hot garbage this last weekend. We'll see what happens going forward with Jacksonville, though, and if they're going to draft a quarterback. Because remember, Gardner Minshew was not drafted high in the draft. He was not anticipated to be the starting quarterback. He took over for a hurt Nick Foles early in the season last year in his rookie year. So who knows what's going to happen there. Chiefs eke by the Dolphins and maintain their 12-1 record, and they actually take the number 1 spot in the AFC, and they clinch the AFC West. Dolphins, this looked like it was going to be a runaway for the Chiefs, and if you actually watched the game really wasn't a 6-point game. It was not. Chiefs looked to be in control of it from the get-go, other than the fact that Mahomes threw 3 interceptions. It definitely was not a close game as the score would have indicated, but Miami did just enough to stay in it and make it to a point where they could potentially win the game at the end. It came down to a few plays in the fourth quarter that really decided that game. Cardinals absolutely snubbed the Giants 26-7. Cardinals maintain their playoff hopes, sitting at 7-6. Giants fall to 5-8, and they fall a game behind Washington now. Cardinals was a big game on defense. Hassan Reddick had a career night. He had 5 sacks. That was the most by any Cardinal defender ever in their history, as far as I believe. And he also forced 3 fumbles. Massive night for Hassan Reddick. Congratulations to him. Buccaneers take down the Vikings 26-14 in a game where Tom Brady didn't even have to be the most Tom Brady could be. And they still beat the Vikings. I mean, it wasn't an absolute drubbing by Tom Brady. It was a complete game. Their defense shut down a Vikings team that couldn't run the ball, that couldn't pass the ball. And Tom Brady did just enough to stay ahead. I mean, he want to say he only put up 25 fantasy points. It wasn't anything massive. The guy didn't throw for 500 yards and 5 touchdowns, but he did enough to win the game, and that's what Bruce Arians says needs to happen. Do enough to win the game. Colts took down the Raiders in what was probably one of the coolest games prior to Monday night. Jonathan Taylor had his coming out party. And if you've not watched Jonathan Taylor run, I advise you watch Jonathan Taylor. When he's in the lead back situation for the Colts and they're actually running him as a lead back, that kid is a freaking stud. He is awesome. He had a fantastic breakaway 40-plus yard touchdown or 60-yard touchdown or whatever it was. And he just, he was boom through the line and gone. That kid is going to be a potent weapon for the Colts, and he's going to be instrumental in that run offense as Phillip Rivers' arm starts to dwindle here late in the season. But they're going to have to rely on that. Colts sitting at 9-7, Raiders fall to 7-6, and their playoff hopes are starting to fade. Then we go to the Seahawks laying an absolute beatdown on the Jets, 40-3. Now, granted, yes, it was the Jets, but it was also a game that saw a lot of former Jets, including Pete Carroll, former head coach, including Jamal Adams, former safety, including Geno Smith, former quarterback, all for the Jets, and they all got a piece of the pie. It was a beating. There was no point in that game that you were like, oh, Jets could come back and win this. There was no point in that game. It was domination from the kickoff to the final whistle. Simple as that. Seahawks move up to 9-4. Jets maintain their 0-13 and maintain their number 1 draft pick status currently. See if the Jaguars have anything to say about that, or the Patriots in Week 17. Chargers take down the Falcons in a game where the team would not give up, in a game where Anthony Lynn's imperfections were masked by the fact that his team was trying to win a football game, even though it was against the Falcons, and the Chargers team played. Anthony Lynn tried to throw the game, it looked like, in multiple situations. And the team said, no, Andy Lynn, screw you, we're not giving up this game. If Anthony Lynn survives to next year as the head coach, if I'm Justin Herbert, I'm asking a trade. I'm demanding to get out of there. Anthony Lynn is going to destroy Justin Herbert's career. Destroy it. And not for getting him hurt, for destroying his mentality, for destroying his ability to play, for destroying his leadership. Andy Lynn's horrible coach for the Chargers. Now, had Tyrod Taylor been the quarterback, would we see different Anthony Lynn? Absolutely, because Anthony Lynn loves Tyrod Taylor. Anthony Lynn does not want Justin Herbert as his quarterback. It's blatantly clear. And if you think that Anthony Lynn is a good coach and should stay as the coach for the Chargers next year with Justin Herbert as his quarterback, go back and watch the last 14 weeks of football. Go back and watch the games of clock mismanagement, of poor play calling, of bad decisions for putting Justin Herbert in harm's way, poor decisions for scoring points, not kicking field goals when they had the opportunity to on 4th and 14 or 4th and 10 inside the red zone, where those points would have won the game. I get it. There's Anthony Lynn fans. Fine. And he may very well be a good head coach. But he's also throwing the biggest baby fit I've ever seen a head coach in the NFL do. And it's horrible because he is killing his team in the process. A week before they were eliminated from playoff contention, he told his players, we are out of the playoffs. Out of the playoffs. We have no shot at the playoffs. A week before they were eliminated. Then they go out the next week and they get eliminated from the playoffs. You don't do that as a head coach. The head coach is supposed to be the biggest rah-rah cheerleader on the team. Yeah, be tough on the team, sure. but the head coach is also supposed to be providing the experience and the expertise to keep his players wanting to play. What are you playing for if you're telling your entire team, we suck, we're done, we don't have anything to play for? So they're just supposed to go out and lay an egg now. Is that what you're telling them? Get out of here with that. Biggest surprise of the weekend, Eagles taking down the Saints. Jalen Hurts' first start at quarterback, and the offense actually moved. Passes were completed. Wide receivers were catching the balls. The run game was working. Miles Sanders looked like a freaking beast. Jalen Hurts moved around in the pocket. Jalen Hurts scrambled. Jalen Hurts ran for 100-plus yards. And the Saints had no answer for it. In a game where the defensive coordinator for the Saints should have been expecting the run. Apparently he never watched Jalen Hurts in college. Because Jalen Hurts is mobile. Jalen Hurts is not just mobile, but he's a running quarterback. Carson Wentz is a mobile, scrambling quarterback. Jalen Hurts is a Lamar Jackson type of running of quarterback, where he's going to use his legs at his advantage every time. And they did not game plan for that. They expected Jalen Hurts to go out and throw the ball, apparently. And he didn't have to. I mean, he did. The wide receivers caught the ball this time. And I don't know the difference between previous Eagles offense, where the wide receivers couldn't get separation, couldn't get open, couldn't catch a pass to save their damn lives. And now Jalen Hurts in there, and all of a sudden all those go away? Was there an issue with Carson Wentz's leadership? Is there a difference with Jalen Hurts' leadership and mentality and style of play? I don't know. I'm not in the locker room. I can't answer that. I haven't heard anybody come forward and say that that's been the case, especially when some of the veterans came out last week after Carson Wentz was announced that he was going to be the backup. Or excuse me, after Doug Peterson announced that Wentz was going to be the backup. Veterans came out and defended Carson Wentz. So you have veterans that came to his defense, love the guy. Some of those guys were his best friends on the team. So what's the difference? Why did it take moving to Jalen Hurts for Doug Peterson to shift the offense to something that was capable of moving the ball? He said it before the game. He said it all week long. We're modifying the offense to shorter, quick passes, to moving around in the pocket, to getting wide receivers open, throwing wide receivers open, and changing the offense so that it's not all on Jalen Hurts. Well, if you've got a quarterback who's been struggling all season, why wouldn't you have done that with your previous quarterback? That doesn't make any sense to me. But hey, I'm not an NFL GM. I just sit back in the chair and get to criticize everybody. Anyway, Eagles take down the Saints in the biggest shocker of the weekend, 24-21. Saints drop to 10-3, and they fall behind the Packers now in the NFC standings. And the Eagles move up to 4-8-1, and they are literally a game and a half out of the NFC East lead. In one of the most bizarre situations in a division that you could have. And then you go over to the Washington football team's game against the Niners, in which the Washington football team won 2 defensive touchdowns in that game. And that was the first time they'd have two defensive touchdowns in a game since like 1997. Chase Young is a freaking beast, and I said that pre-draft that he should have been the number 1 overall pick, and that would have changed Cincinnati's defense completely. And Chase Young is showing every bit of a reason why he should have been the number 1 overall pick, but instead ends up the number 2 overall pick on a very good Washington defense. That front four is, if they make the playoffs, they are going to upset some people's run game. They're going to upset some people's passing game. They can put pressure on a quarterback, and Chase Young is a monster. This kid is going to be a force in the NFL for the next decade. You can bank on that. Anyway, Washington takes down the 49ers 23-15. Washington moves up to 6-7 in firm control of the NFC East at the moment, due to the Giants' loss this weekend. In one of the embarrassing games for the Steelers over the last month, they lose to the Bills, and I don't want to say embarrassing because the Bills played well after the first quarter. Steelers defense held the Bills to 3 points in the first 7 drives, and that's not a bad accomplishment at all. The problem was that the defense was gassed in the second half. Late in the second quarter, they were gassed because the offense couldn't sustain a drive. They had one scoring drive in the first half, and you can't play football that way in the NFL, especially against high scoring teams like the Bills with a good offense like that. You have to be able to get your defense off the field, and then you have to be able to sustain drives. The Steelers took the ball away from the Bills twice in the first half and couldn't convert. Couldn't put points on the board. Absolutely unacceptable. When you have that many problems on your offense and you can't move the ball and you can't put up points and you can't exploit weaknesses, you have a problem. And hopefully they figure it out before the playoffs. They've got 3 games coming up that they can figure it out. If they can't figure it out, they could lose the AFC North. And then the absolute game of the season took place on Monday night. If you did not watch the game last night, shame on you. Hell, go back and watch the game replay. That was an absolute fantastic game. Browns-Ravens. I did not expect this at all. I expected it to either be one-sided or just low scoring. And it was a fantastic 89-point combined game. And there was 20 points scored in the last 2.5 minutes. It was absolutely fantastic. Baker played well. Lamar played well. Ravens ran the rock. Lamar moved the ball. Chubb and Hunt were destructive. Gus Edwards looked amazing last night. It was a fantastic game. Ended up with the Ravens winning 47-42. Covered the Vegas spread as well because of the safety at the very end of the game. But you had a game where Lamar Jackson went into the locker room because of cramps, as he says, and missed a drive, missed 2 drives, and in the fourth quarter, and the Ravens end up falling behind. Trace McSorley comes back out at quarterback with under 3 minutes to go, and drives down the field a little bit, and then he gets caught in an awkward step and looked like he potentially might have torn his ACL or some knee injury where he slipped, because that field was slippery last night, and he slipped in his step and bent backwards, and then he got hit after that, but you could tell he was already hurt by the time the guy hit him. And so he's out, and as they're tending to him, out runs Lamar Jackson from getting an IV in the locker room because he was having cramps. And Lamar Jackson comes in on 4th down, and I think it was 4th and 5, from like the 30-yard line, 35-yard line, whatever it was. And he comes in, and they run a play action, and he bootlegs off to the right side of the field. And the running back that was in front of him was like, "Hey, come on, I'll block for you." He's like waving him to come in, and they have wide open field. And all of a sudden, Marquise Brown breaks free because his coverage, they run into each other. One guy starts coming forward because he looks at Lamar Jackson's going to run, and the guy who was going to stay with Marquise Brown turns the wrong direction and runs more towards the sideline than he runs towards the middle of the field, and it leaves Marquise Brown standing on like the 10-yard line wide open. Lamar pulls up and throws. Touchdown. And then 2-point conversion, and Ravens go up 7, and there was 2 minutes left, 2.5 minutes, whatever it was, and and then Baker leads them down, and they score a touchdown. But the problem was they left 1:04 on the clock. They score a touchdown to tie the game, but they did it so quick that they left Lamar Jackson 1:04 to score, and he drives down, gets them to, I don't know, the 40-yard line or whatever, and Justin Automatic Tucker goes up and freaking, shit cans a field goal and puts them up by 3 with 2 seconds left. Like I said, it was absolutely phenomenal game. If you missed it, go back and watch it. So, with that, what that did, that kept the Ravens' playoff hopes alive, and it really hurt the Browns' chance at taking the AFC North away from the Steelers, who opened the door for them with their 2 losses this last week. So, which we're going to get into momentarily. But anyway, go back and watch the game. It was fantastic.